Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission for Monday, March 7th. We have an established quorum, and I look for approval of the minutes for February 7th, February 11th, February 22nd, and February 24th.
Mr. Chairman, I move to make a motion to approve the minutes for all three of those dates.
Okay, we have a motion to approve all four of those dates.
4 of those dates, sorry.
Second.
Second, perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, for number 3, I'm going to move the recognition of persons not on the agenda until the below new business, just so that we can get through our public hearing and action. Does anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Okay, perfect. Then that means we'll go straight into our public hearing and action, which our first one is an action item for the Annex and Zone, an R4 residential applicant of Copium Investments and care of Mason and Associates, a request to annex and zone to R4 residential a parcel of land approximately 4.09 acres and the entirety of West 12th South Street that fronts this parcel, located at what is currently addressed as 370 West 12th South Street. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to let the audience know I'm Brock Cherry. I'm the city's Community Development Director. If anyone has questions after this meeting, I left my cards on top of the sanitizer dispenser right over there. It has my email, it has my phone number. If there are any questions after this meeting and you want to try to grab me, I'm definitely here to help you understand everything that's going on and help you to the best of my ability. So to go forward with the action which is brought before you today, Mr. Chair, is we have a request to annex and zone a single parcel, which is approximately 4.22 acres, which is at 370 West 12th South. The property currently houses 2 single-family dwelling units. When you look to the current zoning map, we have primarily residential development all around it. It is connected and it is contiguous, thus qualifying for annexation to the city via the property directly to the west, which are the Casa Verde apartments. It is zoned residential per the future land use map, and the zoning designation which is being asked for today is R4 residential, which is high density residential. The purpose of the annexation is to allow for the future development of a manufactured home park, which we have a conditional use permit application which will be discussed after we are done speaking about this item. In regards to annexing solely, staff believes that the property meets all of our standards that we have in place. It is contiguous with the city. The zoning designation being asked is suitable for that area. And with that, I don't have anything else for you. We did receive a letter of a neighboring property who is concerned, but it's primarily more for the projected use, so we will speak about that at the conditional use permit application. But with that, I don't have anything else. I will allow the applicant to summarize what they are asking, and then open ourselves up for any questions you may have, either prior or after the public hearing.
Okay, perfect. Who's the applicant? Come on up.
Take a seat here.
Yes, please.
Should I go through the conditional use portion as well, or just the?
I would just keep it separate. for
Yeah,
now.
keep it separate for
separate?
this. Yep.
Okay.
So this is strictly for the annexing and zone of the R4.
Great. So Isaac Waitman, I am a partner of the applicant. You would have been hearing from our engineer tonight, but he called in sick. So if we have any technical questions, I've got him on speed dial. We can get him in to answer. So like Brock mentioned, we're requesting annexation zoning to R4 of this parcel, approximately 4 acres. We do plan to use it as a manufactured home community. Sounds like I should probably speak more to that for the CUP portion. For this section on the R4, this is what the city recommended. Do that.
Okay. In that case, we'll go ahead and have you sit back. With that then, again, what we're going to go through is anybody who has any comments, questions, or concerns We're going to go through one item at a time. So this one is strictly for the annexing and the zoning of that piece of property. It has nothing to do with conditional use permit as of yet. It is strictly just the annexing into the city and the zoning to an R4. If you have any questions, concerns, or suggestions that you would like to point our way, please make sure you address the council and not any of the applicants. It is a conversation between us. So with that being said, does anybody want to, from the audience, come up and speak to the annexing and the zoning R4? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing for that one then. Commission?
Did you want to, look like you were leaning forward, Barry.
Well, I'm trying to discern where that's at.
Yeah, it doesn't have any north, it doesn't have any north arrows on it, but that one's on West 12th South and by South 5th West. So it's not the one adjoining your property, if that's what you're wondering.
Well,
So-
yeah, I was pretty curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
But still, this piece. This is South Fifth here,
Yes, sir.
Yep.
on Main Street, and this is 12. So this has been rural use up to now, hasn't it? This piece here.
I don't know.
It's been utilized for residential low-density use. There are currently 2 detached single-family
Isn't that
dwellings.
where Ethel Brace used to live?
Suppose, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of set back off the road a bit.
I just wanted to make sure before you closed that public hearing that if you wanted to testify in this one, you had a chance.
Well, I have feelings about it, but they're not my neighbors.
Okay, with that, go ahead. Commission, questions,
They
comments?
say they want to put a mobile home park in there.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute. Yeah, this is just the zoning of it, yep. Nothing?
No,
All right, I'll entertain a motion. Not everybody wants.
Commissioner, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve to the city council a request to annex and zone to R4 a single parcel, which is approximately 4.22 acres, located at 370 West 12th South.
Have a motion, have a second? Second by Billy. Mark, start with you.
aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Billy? Sorry.
Aye.
Travis?
Aye.
Motion passes. Should have drank my coffee. All right, second action item tonight is conditional use permit for the mobile home park applicant of Copium Investments in care of the Mason and Associates. A request for a conditional use permit to establish a new mobile home park to be located at what is currently addressed as 370 West 12th South Street. Mr. Cherry.
Alrighty. So, the R4 district, which has been asked for the respective zoning for the property, requires that for a manufactured home community, that the applicant complete a conditional use permit, which is why they are before you here today. The manufactured home community would consist of 38 manufactured mobile home spaces and a 9,200 square foot rec area. It's important to note that per the code, that there are specific design standards which are applicable towards this use, which is cited within the staff report as far as how it needs to be designed, from minimum lot space to also the rec area and also other items. So not only are you looking at what is the criteria for granting a conditional use permit, which if you look at the staff report, is it harmonious with the comprehensive plan? Is it going to have any disturbing or hazardous features which could detrimentally impact surrounding property? You have all of those, but you also have items such as lot size, spacing, the front yard setback, the rear yard setback. The good news is that I have reviewed those standards for you to see what is applicable and what isn't. The one standard for a manufactured home community that the applicant is asking to deviate from, which they are able to ask for, being that this is a conditional use permit, is the individual storage area. And they will speak more to that, of why they are asking for that specific deviation. However, in staff's review of the pertinent criteria for conditional use permits and also the manufactured home community design standards, staff believes that they meet all of the minimum requirements that our ordinance calls for. The applicant has also completed a traffic impact study actually no, I think I'm thinking of the other
next
one.
one.
Take that back. Being that they are only asking for 38 units, staff along with the public works director believe that a traffic impact study wasn't necessary. That we do have Full Street right out there, which serves as a collector roadway, which we believe will be able to facilitate the majority of that traffic. With that, I will make myself available for any questions you may have, but I want to give the applicant time to present to speak more specifically to this use, and then we can answer any questions you may have either before or after the public hearing.
Perfect. Thank you. Come on back up.
Isaac Waitman again. So on the manufactured home community, our goal with the project was twofold. One, an attractive, family-friendly community for the area. And second, something that was going to be naturally affordable. In conversations with city staff, it sounded like that was something that was very important for the city of Mountain Home. So towards those goals, as Brock mentioned, we have a large landscape area in the center of the community designed to get people together. We're going to do it like a playground there for the kids, something for promoting recreational activities. The rest of the landscaping will be drought tolerant. Again, something city staff recommended that would be beneficial to the city. In terms of design and scope, we had no concerns in our neighborhood meeting on the 23rd. It sounded like this would be a nice improvement to the neighborhood. And on the affordability portion, the staff mentioned some of the shortfalls of affordable housing in the city of Mountain Home. So doing a manufactured home community that's going to be naturally affordable without any subsidies or anything like that, probably about half the cost of a living compared to either renting or owning a home somewhere else in town. And that is connected to the request for the exception of the storage facilities, just giving the demographic of the people who will likely be living in the community. One, we didn't see much of a need for storage for recreational vehicles, and two, we didn't want to have to add something to the project that could impact our ability to be able to offer those spaces at a lower price. So that was kind of the twofold thinking behind requesting that exception. Other than that, we think we can design a project that will be a benefit to the neighborhood and ask for your approval.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and with that, I'd like to go ahead and open it up to a public hearing. Anybody who would like to come and speak to this for or against or share any comments, please feel free to come up.
I'd love to share a comment, and I didn't come here for that.
That's totally fine. Come on up.
Can I just sit here?
You have to come up. You have to give us name and address as well, please, for the record.
It's Jane Cook, and I live on 1434 Edward Street, so I didn't come here for that particular project, but I'm wondering if you have ever lifted a trailer before.
You have to address us. We'll ask that question.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have that question to
Okay.
ask, and also if these people have not lived in a trailer before, which I have not, but I've been associated with people that have, that storage space is important to them.
Okay.
So, that's the only thing I would like to say about that, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave, come on up.
That one?
Wherever you want to be.
Out the door? David Esquena, 4020 South Main, Mountain Home, Idaho. I'm here on behalf of, well, I'll start out with the Mountain Home Irrigation District. It is my understanding, and because I only found out about this half hour ago, that there is one of our delivery pipes buried under the eastern boundary of that property. I know generally, but I don't know specifically because I haven't been out there and looked. But the developers, and we just had a conversation, that there is that water delivery pipe for irrigation in that location. If it were an open ditch, we'd need to have a road there to maintain that. Because it's buried pipe, we don't need the road. But they need to know that the pipe is there and they can't be destroying it. If they want to do something with that pipe, they need to notify the landowners who have water delivery from that pipe that they want to do something. And if that all is in agreement, it has to be done sometime outside of the normal irrigation season. For example, that particular property, I understand at one time had a water right through the district, irrigation district, that has since been sold off. So the point of delivery from that pipe for that property, we need to go in and close off. But there are about 3 or 4 other landowners that do receive water through that pipe. So I'm not speaking for nor against this project, I'm just being informing. I would say something on behalf of the Elmore Soil and Water Conservation District, but the only thing we would say, I know the city already has a plan or a methodology for weeds. You don't let weeds grow. So they don't have anything else to say either.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Dave, is you writing that? Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on that. Commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
questions. I got this packet. I can't read these numbers. I can't even read them up there. So it talks about 10-foot space between, minimum distance between manufactured or mobile homes. These are mobile homes, right?
Yes.
Should be 10 feet. I don't see it. Does it show the 10 feet? Where am I seeing 10 feet between them?
So these are the spaces only. I believe on the site plan, they did not put the proposed setbacks. However, they would have to abide by those. So you can assume that there would be 10 feet on both sides, along with any corresponding front and rear setback.
So with the 10 feet, they'll still be able to put that many there on that property? I mean, I'm looking at this drawing. It looks like they're right next to each other.
Go to, right over here, so, keep going down, right there, 31.
Okay, and the 31 is depicting what? Oh, you got a big old drawing here.
And those lots are all, you can see on here, they're 31 feet.
Oh, I see. Well, so these are not all individual trailers. These are spaces between them. Okay, and then the other question, can I hold on to this for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely, it's yours. Yeah, if anybody else would like one.
You guys want to look and you can see it better. Off-street parking, does it show that? Did I miss that too? The off-street parking on the drawing here for each one of the lots?
Well, they do have parking areas right here on the.
Well, they have 10 parking spots, basically. Well, 12, I guess, with the, let's see, what do we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 with 12 with the handicap parking. That's not enough for everybody, right?
No, but, Mr. Chairman, but each of the mobile home lots
Right.
shall be designed to provide 2 off-street parking
No,
spaces.
I know that, I understand.
That
I read
doesn't
that.
include the one that's like for guests.
Right. I just don't see them on the drawing,
Oh,
is what I'm saying.
I think what you're seeing on the drawing is specifically just the spaces.
Right.
And they would create the pads, the.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I don't like to assume. I thought we would have a drawing with them being shown. And then the other question I had was about the space. A member of the public, I'm sorry, ma'am, I forgot your name, brought up the storage being important. Just to be clear, this storage is not like, unless I'm wrong, this is not storage for extra household items storage. This is RV lot storage. This is boat storage and so forth, right?
Yes.
If I just may read the portion which speaks about this storage area, per our code, it says, "A common fenced area shall be provided on site for the storage of recreational vehicles such as boats, trailers, and campers owned by park residents." So I believe
So
they
it's
were
not
speaking
housing.
about larger scale
Right.
type.
I just wanted to clarify that because that's how I understood it. I didn't know if the comment was leaning towards extra household item storage type things. And with that, my last question would be, I understand the demographics, the assumption that the folks that live there probably wouldn't have a boat or a camper. What if they do? Then what are we gonna do? Where are we parking it? Are we just gonna prohibit it in there, or are we gonna park it around the back or something? Would be my question, I guess, for the applicant.
So, when it comes to the storage areas, the next part of code says such items shall be stored in the storage area and not be parked beside the manufactured or mobile home. Which leads me that the intent of that was to not allow that.
So then they would prohibit those type items, the RVs and the boats, in that lot, period.
I'm not aware that would need to be directed towards the applicant.
Billy. I'm thinking of, say, an apartment complex. They don't usually provide special places for the people that live in the apartments, or multiple family areas with their own storage. I mean, that's why we have a lot of storage places
I
here.
get it.
that-
I think I know the answer. I'm trying to be clear. So if we're going to consider an exemption, or an exception, I should say, of the storage area for that type of item, I would just like to hear that's their intent, would be to prohibit them. Therefore, we wouldn't have a congestion issue in there with boats on the road. That's the only reason I'm asking it.
Billy, you have something?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. A couple questions I have. Is there a definition or a restriction on the age of the mobile homes?
Not that I'm aware. I do know that there is state statute which says that a mobile home or manufactured home of a certain age sometimes can't be moved.
It's like
But that's another question that I would probably direct towards the applicant.
I think it's like 70 or 80 or something, isn't it?
76 or 70.
Yeah. Then, so would this be own or rent?
Again, I would
Okay.
direct that
Okay.
question towards the
Yeah,
applicant.
why don't you come on up?
Yeah.
We have a lot of questions for you.
Yeah, I was starting to get a little list here.
So which one would you like to tackle first?
We can go in order.
Okay.
So for the storage, Councilman Berletic,
Very good. That's excellent. Yes.
exactly what she said. So we would have community guidelines that would follow a city code, basically saying you can't park a boat, an RV in your parking space. And we wouldn't have a prohibition against owning those. It would just be up to the residents if they wanted to own one to go find a place to store it. We just didn't think it was likely to have very many people, if any, owning those and keeping those on site. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. You didn't want to try my name?
Sourwald.
Very good.
There we go. It was blocked there. So, to your question, was it regarding the age of the homes themselves or the residents?
A little bit of both, then I had a couple other, but,
Yeah. We didn't have an age restriction planned for residents. For homes, like Brock's mentioned, we have to abide by
right.
pretty strict guidelines, and our plan would actually be most likely because of some of the shortages in homes right now, trying to bring some in, new homes in bulk that residents could then purchase or like work out an agreement with a dealer.
Now, would
to bring
they-
new homes?
Would they own the lot, or would it be a lot rent?
So it would be lot rent, but they would own the homes.
Okay. Another thing, again, thank you for this, this is helpful. Didn't see a dumpster area or garbage defined anywhere?
Yes, that, I give away all my copies of the plans. I believe that's on the northern side, if you can scroll up there.
Oh, there's the north.
There's a north arrow.
Yeah, so that would be on the, in that center area.
So it would be a dumpster type garbage facility then?
Exactly, it would just be a pretty standard dumpster for everyone to use.
So, I guess the next question is 30-foot wide, is that appropriate for fire trucks and to make that curve right there and for dumpsters or for those type of big vehicles?
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Commissioner Roeder, it has been reviewed by the fire marshal.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I got one more question for the applicant. Are you going to have a sign out front?
Yes, sir, probably right in the middle of that center landscaped area in the front.
Oh, inside,
Yes.
inside the, not by the street, not the entrance or anything?
It would be visible from the street, but
I got
yeah,
you.
right inside our area.
Chairman. Sir. I'm not sure if I'm not reading this correctly, but I didn't see a water runoff.
Collection.
Or collection. Thank you.
Yes, that's probably one that I'd need to phone in our engineer to get you an answer if you need it right now.
Okay.
Would you like me to do that?
Yes, please.
Perfect. It should be available.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Brock, what's the proper term for that,
For
for the water collection,
stormwater retention.
storm water retention? Oh, I see.
Also, it wasn't noted in the staff report, but the storage area is
Hey,
also,
well, this is Isaac.
in addition
You okay if I put you
to
on
the
speaker
storage
here?
area, that there would be one permanent storage building with a minimum of 40 square feet of floor area, which is with
For each mobile home.
for each mobile home space.
You're gonna have to say that again in a second.
Yeah, let's get this one done
Yeah.
first.
So this is Will Mason here, engineer. Will, the question was about water runoff areas for the park.
Yes. So what I had anticipated we would do with those water runoff areas is we would store them in the recreation area. Depending on the material underneath the ground, we would probably try to put some of that below ground, but the soils report would have to determine that.
Okay.
I was just curious why it wasn't noted on the plan.
Did you catch that?
I did, and the only reason is because this is a concept plan and we haven't actually done design yet.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Will. I might call you back in a second if anyone has questions.
Okay. Thank you.
This is questions for probably Rich or Brock. Is that okay? I'm not from.
Well, we're not going to approve anything unless it comes back to, I mean, if this is basically the concept, we really haven't seen anything.
Well, I was asking about the storage in the recreation areas. Is that something we've done before? Okay.
So, just to reiterate, if you're satisfied with the question that was, the answer which was provided by the applicant, for the storage area, there is two components. Basically, there's an area to store vehicles, but then there is like a 40-foot, it could be a shed, what have you, self-contained area for each individual mobile home, which is also part of that requirement, which the applicant is asking to deviate from.
So no sheds then for storage.
Correct.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, Brock, you're saying it wasn't just for RVs and boats.
Correct.
It's also for household items.
Correct.
So the code section reads, 915.5, storage areas. A common fenced area should be provided on site for the storage of recreational vehicles such as boats, vacation trailers, and campers owned by park residents. Such items shall be stored in the storage area, not parked beside the manufactured or mobile home. Storage area shall contain a minimum of one paved parking space 10 by 20 feet for each 2 mobile home spaces. So basically, it's assuming half the people will have an RV or a boat. Then the next section says, in addition to the above, one permanent storage building with a minimum of 40 square feet of floor area shall be provided for each mobile home space. So that's what they're requesting to deviate from, is both of those requirements. Because I didn't see a storage bit, like, I assume you could congregate them all together in one big building with, units A, B, and C.
So, Mr. Chairman,
I
it
was
was,
only aware of the RV one,
Right.
but it sounds like the other one wouldn't be difficult to fit in if we needed to do that. But
So that-
I guess as the plan is, we are, asking for exception.
so my question is, can be in a conditional use permit, I hope maybe we have the latitude to segregate those two types of storage and give kind of a variance and say, well, we may entertain the idea to give the exception of the RV boat storage, but the requirement to continue to have the storage for
40-foot storage.
that 40-foot storage.
Okay.
And if you don't mind me speaking to that, just quick math, we could basically take one of these spaces and convert it to a storage area and meet that requirement for if that was something you wanted us to do.
Doc, you have something?
Yes. It's important to note that the 40 square foot area was to be provided for each mobile home space. So know that they could easily take one of those lots and convert it to like a shared common storage area. But know that the intent was that each space would kind of have their own little storage area to be along with that dwelling unit. If that makes sense.
So it's,
So that would be on each individual lot. I got you.
yeah, so go ahead.
That's what I was gonna ask too. So you're talking about a storage area that big on each one of those spaces, rather than a
Communal.
communal one?
So,
Well, under
yeah.
one.
So 40 square feet is basically 6 by 6. So one of those little barn things you can buy maybe would suffice. Or, counting the number of spots, it'd be a 32 foot by 32 foot, or however if you want to elongate it, but 1,040 square feet. So I just doing quick math. And that could be dry, just simple building, you could lock the spots up, I don't know. It just, that's what it says, so.
Rich, good.
Chairman, Commissioners, and I think one thing with that, it's, I don't know if they're trying to get away from having those, I mean, they're basically leasing the piece of property and then they own is that correct? They're leasing the piece of property and then they own their own building.
That's correct.
I mean, they could, just being able to have a pad to be able to put their own on there, I think that's part of what it was. It's either they take care of it themselves, or it would be allowed to be able to put that on there, on site, so something to kind of think about.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I believe the applicant, or the owner is required by the code to provide it, not to allow for someone to purchase it.
Jeff, can you take a look at that code again?
I think it is. That's what it is. I mean, if they wanted to deviate it, we're not going to build it, but it could still be in their property, be able to put there.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, what I'm getting at is would it, if we were to entertain the exception for the RVs and boats, and say, well, they still require the 40 square feet per unit, could they get away with just a pad and saying you can buy a storage box yourself, or are they required to provide that storage box? That is, the way I understand the reading of that is that they're required to provide it to the residents. Maybe not.
So each list of these things are lists of things that a park operator is required to provide. So I guess, right, so the street, it's in the same list as all the landscaping requirements
Yeah.
are not to be done by the tenants unless they have to mow or something. Parking
they're-
blocks.
They're either asking for both of them or go away, or just one of them, and your
Yeah.
choice to make, there's your compromise. You can get rid of this one, but you keep this one, and that's your, I think that's your prerogative.
May I mention something clarifying on that? With Brock's clarification, that's probably the reason I didn't hear about it, because we didn't get a note that we were asking for an exception on the individual spaces. So I think the engineer's plan here was to provide each individual space on each lot rather than like a shared area. So we would just be asking for the exception from the RV and boat storage as opposed to the personal storage items.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just clarify, what are you proposing to provide to the resident? Like a box or just a pad?
Whichever the city requires and something that fits with the design, so.
So the minimum standard says shall be a 40 square foot floor area building. So enclosed, and as the applicant mentioned, they had all of these design standards, and being that they're engineered and speak directly to this one, maybe that was one that you guys were satisfied to provide. I think the Public Works Director also brings up a great point. When you look at how this is going to be done, how people who own the homes are going to be putting them there, you could also say that you will provide a pad space for that to be there as well. I would just ask the applicant what his thoughts are, and then you can make your recommendation of what you best think would be best implemented.
Mr. John, is it possible to not get down so much to the nitty-gritty and look at just the kind of, in my mind, the two parts of this? Because I'm, the RV part of it, for big, mobile type things, boats and that. And then the other part is the storage. Okay, so could we, at this point, because this is this a preliminary plat, or is it even at that? I don't think it's
This
even
is a
that.
conditional use permit. So
Okay.
let's say that the proposed condition was we don't need the RV and boat storage. Then what would happen is when they submit their construction documents with more detailed plans, which would show setbacks and everything else that may not be illustrated on this plan, we would review those, and I would review to see if there's a 40 square foot building area, and if it wasn't there, the plans would not be approved for the conditional use permit, and we would say, you have to add this here, or you're gonna have to go back and ask for it.
So what I'm thinking is within the motion, if we move to approve the conditional use permit and then put in that, I don't know how we word it, but saying it's okay not to do the, okay,
No, I was just trying to help.
Oh,
You were
okay.
saying you were-
Oh, right.
What wording it would be,
right,
basically the 40 square foot building
for the 40
slash
square foot.
unit for each
Right.
resident, not including RV/boat storage area.
Okay.
You think?
Does that answer? Is that,
Well, I know what I want, I just can't say it. I'm trying to think of how we could do it. So, in my mind, are there two sections to that additional
Yes,
storage
there are.
in the
So
storage?
the way that 9-15-5 reads is it speaks to a common fenced area
Right,
for recreational vehicles. And then it says, in addition to the above. So basically, your condition would be that we are not going, that the applicant is not required to provide for the common fenced area
right.
for the storage of recreational vehicles.
And to me, that says it. Because that's the specific part we're okaying, if we okay it, that they can have a variance or whatever you want to call it. But that still leaves, without even having to say it in my mind, that they still have to, because it's a requirement, provide the 40 square feet storage. area.
And with the findings of fact, we would make sure that that is very
Right.
distinct.
And honestly, I don't think we should be getting into saying it needs to be on the pad or it's a common thing. I think that's up to them, how they want to provide that 40 square feet. of
This has to be
storage.
40 square feet.
Mhm.
And in the building.
A permanent building.
That's already spelled out.
Bill, did you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there was a letter that was enclosed in our package from, Mr. Freer, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, that lives on 414 West West 12 South, that would like to propose, the applicant to put a solid screen fence, between the property lines, due to the density of, what's there and what's, being projected.
Is there anything in the code that says they have to?
Staff reviewed the code, and being that they're both residential districts, not necessarily. However, I believe this would be a great question for the applicant, because I don't know if the applicant already planned on screening their project,
We didn't have plans to.
or didn't have plans to. But what is being asked by Mr. Freer, who resides he owns these two properties right here, is that there be a screening fence separating his property from the proposed manufactured home park. The code has screening requirements when you have two different zoning districts, which abut one another. But from what I was able to find, we do not have any requirements for manufactured home parks. We may do for multifamily because, well, and this one isn't old, this was in 2015, that say when you're next to a single family use or a less intense residential use that you need to have some sort of screening. But in the requirements and the design standards for a manufactured park, staff was not able to identify any. However, being a conditional use permit, in order to meet the conditional use criteria, which talks about harmony and being able to mix with all of the surrounding uses, that could be the appropriate condition.
I'm just looking at the comprehensive plan, Brock, this question, just to make sure I'm reading this right, on page 56. So this would be considered an infield. Would the fence be, and I'm just paraphrasing, compatible with the character of the neighborhood? If there are existing fences now, that in a fence wouldn't be that much of a, what's the right word?
Burden.
Thank you. Since there existing fences there now.
So with the photo alone, you can see that they may not be screening fences, but most of these properties have some sort of fencing,
Okay.
which is between them.
So, I'm reading this, item J, 8.10, required new housing infield additions to existing residential structures that are visible from adjoining properties to the street to be sited and designed with compatible characteristics of the existing neighborhood. So that would fill that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Schroeder, if that's kind of, am I reading into that, or?
So 8, where are you getting that? Is that from the comp plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the code says conditions attached to conditional use. Conditions may be attached to a conditional use permit, including but not limited to those conditions which, A, minimize adverse impact on other development, B, control the sequence and timing of development, C, control the duration of development, D, assure that the development is maintained properly, E, designate the exact location and nature of the development, F, require the provision for on-site public facilities or services, G, require more restrictive standards than those generally required in this title, or H, require mitigation effects of the proposed development upon service delivery by any political subdivision, schools, parks, fire protection, irrigation districts. Allow a change from required setbacks, off-street parking, fence heights, other standards particular. And so, so you would need to articulate why a screening fence fits into one of those categories. How does the lack of a screening fence affect other properties? In order to make that a condition.
Right,
Or
well,
the applicant can voluntarily do it. But if you're saying we're not gonna approve this absent that fence, then you need to be able to
Well,
tie it.
if I'm understanding right, Brock said that most of the homes there already have a screening fence, and this would fit within that, the comprehensive plan of being compatible with the character of the existing neighborhood. I don't know if we can ask the applicant, would they be opposed to that?
No.
I just want to take,
Is it a screening fence?
just want to make sure we take the citizens' request and,
So we have
Chain
Google
link or
Maps.
whatever?
And it's important to note that there's fencing, but whether or not it's screening. So you have chain link fence in the area.
Mr. Cherry, I'd like you to make a record of what the commission and the applicant are looking at right now on, just so it's on the record, so that we don't, this is like a virtual site visit, and I guess I would ask the applicant to confirm that this is the subject, the vicinity that of your park, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So as part of this virtual site visit, as we pioneer a virtual site visit, I just want to state that we are looking at the subject property, we are looking at surrounding properties based on a Google Street View from July 2021. And what we do see is there is fencing, primarily chain link in the area. However, the properties are all single family in nature.
Wrong, Chairman, Commissioner, the one, I think it's a fourplex, fourplex that's up against it there, that's butting up against it, it does have a solid fence in the back of it.
Custom Via.
Casa Verde
Also,
Apartments?
yeah. If you go out to Fifth and walk, if you go out to Fifth and look,
Now, on our virtual site visit, we're looking at the Casa Verde Apartments. And if you look back, there does appear to be a screening offense from the multifamily, which is right between the multifamily use and the vacant field.
Have you had an opportunity to talk with Michael Freer?
We have not yet.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mark?
my thoughts are, so far from what I've heard and seen, I don't see where it's a requirement. It sounds like, I think maybe what you're alluding to is that it might be a good neighbor conversation between the neighbor and the developer or the applicant. I think that would be better suited for that than us to try to even just asking, if it would be acceptable, would be, minimal pressure maybe. I think it would be better suited, just my opinion, a conversation between neighbors. Since we don't see, at least so far that I've heard, any requirement for it.
Is there a requirement for that Casa Beta to have one, or would they would just be in quote-unquote good neighbors on that?
So the Casa Verde apartments, I believe, are, so when were they constructed? So I can tell you that we have multifamily development standards, which off the top of my head, if I was able to look, I don't know if there is a fencing requirement for that specific type of development. But I can say that per the comprehensive plan, per the conditional use permit criteria, that a higher impact type residential use with a higher density than surrounding properties, it doesn't not make sense for a fence to be there to deviate between the more intense use versus the less intense use.
But is it required? Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one. I don't hear that there's a requirement per se. However, I would encourage the good neighbor to go and have a conversation. I'm all about less government, more people having conversations and doing things. Because for us to put conditions on it would just hurt you in the long run. I'd rather you guys, as a development, come together and have a conversation with your surrounding partners or your surrounding neighbors and seeing what you can do to mitigate those issues. I don't think that's I don't think this body has any forthwith to be able to say yes, you have to, because that's not what we're hearing.
So I just want to make sure that we fully vet citizen request, that's all.
Absolutely. Commission, do you have anything else?
One more quick question, Mr. Chairman, just to satisfy Dave's question, if I could ask, you could ask the applicant, do they understand that irrigation pipe is buried there, and do they anticipate any problems with development with that pipe being where it's at?
We do understand, we do not anticipate any problems, although that, again, is something I'd have to refer to our engineer and that he'll have to deal with in our construction plans that Brock mentioned will be forthcoming.
And out of curiosity, do you understand what Mr. Espino was saying when, if there was anything that was to happen with that pipe was to be moved, turned into a ditch, do you understand the steps that needed to take place in order for any movement of that pipe to happen?
Yes, sir, we're clear on those.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
It's also important to note in the setback standards for a manufactured home park, I believe it's a 15-foot rear setback, which needs to be there. And if the placement really is along that fence line, then it shouldn't be disturbed. But I think making note of it is important. I'm glad the irrigation district came, because we didn't have any record, and I don't think there was any record of the county either. So.
Commission?
Like to make a motion?
All right, we got a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to the city council for a conditional use permit to allow manufactured home park on property located 370 West 12th South. Subject property is proposed to zone R4 residential single-family high-density dwellings. Subject to a site plan amendment as required by building, public works, fire, and zoning officials to comply with applicable city codes and standards, and the applicant shall allow deviate from the manufactured home park design requirement as found in 915, which mandates a 20-foot common fence area shall be provided on site. How did we, I'm going to pause there, make sure I said that correctly. Common fence that shall be provided on site for storage of recreational vehicles such as boats, vacation trailers, campers owned by park residents.
Okay, have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Second by Nancy. Travis?
Aye.
Billy? Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Motion passes. Move to our third item on the list. Thank you. We have an action item for preliminary plat from Autumn Park Subdivision, applicant GA Han Development. I apologize if I mispronounced that at all. I request for a preliminary plat approval for the proposed Autumn Park subdivision. The plat contains 48 total lots. That includes 45 multifamily residential lots consisting of 39 duplex lots, 2 triplex lots, 4 fourplex lots, and 3 common lots. The northerly 10 acres of parcel number right there.
Alrighty.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request to approve the Autumn Park subdivision preliminary plat consisting of approximately 10 acres, which is at just west of Southwest Rolling Hills Avenue and abuts the Autumn Avenue roadway, which we will discuss further during this meeting. It is important that everyone understand where we are. I apologize for there not being a north arrow right here, but this is north looking south with the Rolling Hills development, which is currently there. So the Autumn Park subdivision is proposed to consist of 45 lots, which will have 39 duplex lots, 2 triplex lots, 4 fourplex lots, and 3 common lots, which would provide up to 100 residential units. The proposed plan also provides for a community building and also a park. The property is currently within the city. It is zoned R4. They are platting. They are not asking for any sort of special deviation. They are not asking for any special planned unit development. So they will be required to meet all of our standards for any typical R4 subdivision, which the applicant is aware of. The applicant has completed a traffic impact study based on the amount of traffic that will be generated by the proposed residential lots. It is important to note that the traffic study does not incorporate Autumn Road in any way, but only the local existing roadways which surround the property. One moment. So, further, what we are looking at during the platting process mainly is the availability of public services to accommodate the proposed development, that the continuity of the proposed development with the capital improvement program is acceptable, that the public financial capability of providing services for the proposed development is viable, and that other health, safety, or environmental problems may be brought to the Commission's attention. It is zoned residential. It's zoned residential per the comprehensive plan. The request meets the minimum requirements of zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. Note that I say minimum, being that we require going through this process in order for this to go forward. I think it's important that everyone understand here the role of Autumn Road when it comes to the development. I've had the opportunity to learn much about Autumn Road and what it is and what it isn't. It is not a dedicated public right-of-way. The landowners there own the road. In order for that to become a public road, it would need to be dedicated, whether it be to the city, which with this development that it could be. Note that whether or not this development goes forward, whether or not it is passed, does not remove options from either the city or surrounding property owners to discuss whether or not that road should be dedicated. But for the sake of this application, on the surface, and legal can definitely do a deep dive as well, that Autumn doesn't exist even though it's there. Thus, the development in its construction would have to only access local city roads that are there. The question that we have received from many private property owners, well, is how are you going to stop them? We can put up really big boulders. We can do everything we can to make sure that the access is not taken advantage of, being that it is not a right-of-way. Do I recommend that a solution for that road come in the future? absolutely. I believe there should be some sort of way for the existing property owners to exercise their property development rights to whether they want to maintain it as a private drive, or if they don't want to maintain it, for them to have some say of how does it look like if it does become a dedicated public right of way. But that's something I want to speak to, and something for this body to understand as well, of what role does Autumn play. So really what I need you to do as a body is look at the application as presented by the applicant and pretend that what is there as far as Autumn isn't there, and to look at the application as such. With that, I believe we have a individual who's representing the applicant. It is Chuck Christensen. Hey, Chuck. We have him. He will be able to answer questions on behalf of the applicant. He's the representative. With that, I don't have any new information to give you, Commission, unless you have any specific questions for me before the applicant presents.
No, I think we'll go ahead and let the applicant present. Thank you.
My pleasure. My name is Chuck Christensen. Much to my chagrin, I'm here representing the owner. I work for Quadrant Consulting. We're the engineer on the project, and our address is 1904 West Overland in Boise. And Brock has described the project thoroughly. The owner has reviewed the staff report and the conditions of approval that are outlined there, and everything looks good to them.
If that's the case, then I'll go ahead and have you take a seat back. Thanks for
I
coming
could
up.
take up a bunch more time if you'd like me to.
Can I
We can-
clarify something?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not clear. So, given Brock's representations as to the status of Autumn as a wholly private road, only going over private property, and only for the purpose of those private property owners, is it your intent to physically block that access off until that is resolved? Is it? Oh, go ahead. Did you have something?
I can.
Go ahead, Rich.
I think that we would, when we get a final, when we go through our final and with streets, we'll make sure that it has a type 3 barricade that's permanent until that road is built out. I think that'd probably be a good way to go with that, so.
Chairman,
Okay, yes,
can I
sir.
ask what a type 3 barricade is?
It's the bigger one that's like in the ground, has 3 big, it's not like an A-frame, it's a
Okay.
big one.
Were you saying no? You were shaking your head, so.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
The type 2 barricade's great.
I've also spoken directly to the applicant about this issue. And for them, it's half of a road that they don't have to build. However, they do know that the situation's fluid. They want to understand from the surrounding property owners what do they want to have. Are they willing to dedicate a portion of that roadway so that's where the road ultimately needs to be, if so? But they understand the fluidity, and as the representative mentioned, I believe the applicant is able to do both, to go both directions regardless of how it pans out of what does Autumn ultimately become.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask, so how's that affect any sidewalk, gutter stuff, if in the future that road become, let's say, for instance, it's private now, so they wouldn't be required, right, the developer to put that there, sidewalks and so forth, they would not, right? So if down the road, whatever agreement you're talking about, or that road becomes a real road, who puts that in? Who puts the sidewalks in that?
It really depends ultimately, where's the road going to be? And that's...
I mean, if the road is where it not right now, where we're looking at, right, it goes right along the development, if it just stays there, would the city have to put that sidewalk in?
It would be my hope, and it may not be a unfortunate condition, that the destiny of Autumn Road would be decided prior to a final plat being submitted so that the final plat could represent what right of way and what needs to be there. Because simply adding sidewalk and adding road isn't viable. There would have to be some sort of plan beforehand, which I believe can be reached during the interim, which is between the preliminary plat and the final plat. But as of right now, I can tell you from me learning of the current condition of that roadway in the last few days, there isn't a good answer of where is the road, how is it going to look like. I can tell you that if it just turned out that none of the property owners wanted to dedicate at all, that there would be a likelihood that the city would just change our master plan for that area to look differently. But we haven't been able to have those conversations yet. I believe property owners are willing to have those conversations. And I believe that after this meeting, we're going to be having conversations. But to answer your question, it's not as easy as saying, all right, we're going to adopt this as is, and now we will put in a road.
I understand. I guess my question is just the fact that if they do dedicate the road, is the developer going to put the sidewalk on, or is the city?
If it was done
After.
after, if it was done after a final plat, I believe it would be difficult to condition that dedication, but I will give it to Mr. Schroeder.
Well, the question I have is, I'm looking at a roadway that exists on the ground, which I assume is somewhat also bounded by the property owner's boundary line on the east side. So the property owners that own their pieces, individual lots, crosses that road, and there's the line. And then the next thing over is this proposed subdivision. So all of the property in the subdivision is not on the road.
Correct.
So if that becomes a dedicated road, there wouldn't be sidewalks along there because the road edge comes right up to the edge of the subdivision. Unless the developer ekes out a little bit of the edge of that for future
5 foot right away.
for a sidewalk or curb and gutter.
Correct.
Rather than the fence coming right up to the side of the road.
Correct.
That's up to the developer.
Which is up to the developer. You know, as a planner, what I believe to get the best infrastructure possible would be that we would have that sort of design prior to the final plat, because then the developer can make the lots the exact size that he needs to, and make sure that we have the suitable right-of-way for sidewalk and everything typical of a subdivision. But if it was done after, it would be exactly how Mr. Schroeder conveyed it to you. It would be limited space. It wouldn't meet the current standard.
Interesting.
Any other questions?
I think it's a moot point.
Okay, I'll go ahead and have you step out. Thank you. So with that, as a reminder, any questions, comments, or concerns you have, please do address the commission. We will do our best to answer every question or concern that you do have. There are going to be things that we don't know that we're going to definitely be relying on Mr. Cherry or Mr. Schroeder on. But just know that all comments, concerns are valid, and we want to hear you. On another note, we are only one body that can either approve or disapprove moving forward. Ultimately, it will be the city council. So whatever we do tonight, I always encourage anybody who comes in, please go to the city council meeting when this comes up on the agenda and speak to it there as well. Because ultimately, it is going to be their decision. They will hear, of course, our recommendation, but they will make a decision based on what they feel is best. And I also want to encourage you to go there and spend your time having those conversations with your council members as well. So with that, I'd like to open up to the public hearing. So anybody who would like to come up, please come forward, state your name and address, and
I'm Dan Jacob. My address is 780 Highway 51, Mount Nome here. and I couldn't really hear everything you gentlemen were saying. You should sort of forget about that road. I heard that part, didn't get it all. I'm hard of hearing. That's why I speak so loud, so I can hear myself. But the road, I'm looking at this here plot, what you guys got up there. I still see and I know it's all preliminary stuff, but the road cannot be dismissed. I mean, that's how we get onto our property. And all of this development that's going on back here, people travel back off of Smith Road or whatever, and they cut down Autumn Road. They tore up our road as the private landowner and owners. We can't maintain it because we're not a public road, but the public uses this road. Can't keep them off. If you want to send the cops down there and write tickets every time, we'll be more than happy, but we're not going to stop the traffic and the people. I can put up all the no trespassing signs I want. It isn't going to stop it. Now, looking at this development, they're going to have 100 families in this 10 acres. That's what it equates to me. 100 people live in there. I see all kinds of problems because I built a couple of houses myself. And I don't see well, it isn't that detailed, but I see parking problems. Most families have 2 cars. So you're going to have over 200 cars sitting on 10 acres of land. That's the number one problem. Getting the emergency, like fire trucks and stuff, if you don't have some sort of an exit off of this project, you can get people trapped and hurt. So it becomes a safety problem. And in this here development, is there going to be, their property line butts right up to my property line. And I want to work with all of you guys, and I think I can speak for some of my neighbors. We want to work with you. We would be more than happy, I think, to get this to be a dedicated road and make it a public road, because that's who's using the road. Okay? That's who's using this road. Because I know this development is going to let me, okay, screw the road, let me come in on your property and drive through your property. They'd hate that. But that's what they want to do with us. So we got to work together, and I admit that. We have to work together. I couldn't hear you guys said something about sidewalks. What about road easements? The road easement is already off of our side of the property. We've already given that up. And the public is using it, and they enjoy it. Smith Road, Air Base Road, nice shot. Is there going to be any contingencies for easements for right-of-way? If they build this, you guys are going to be sitting here 10, 20 years from now, hey, we need a road, but we can't put a road in now because there's no easements. I don't know who split this land up originally or when it was. Mr. Peterson knows more about that than me. But quite obvious, nobody put any easement rights on any of this property. This is what I've been finding out through the title company. There's no easement rights on it, a bucket of warrants. Next question, well, for your history, because you guys don't know nothing about Autumn Road, who actually put in Autumn Road to begin with? Bet you none of you folks have a clue. I have a clue. I saw it. I live out here. And I can tell you, it was the Mountain Home Highway District that put that road in. They graveled it. They did they opened up the can of worms. And when they did that, the public started going down that road. So I don't know, seriously, I do not know anything, but I do know one thing. The root problem was Elmore Highway District. They put that road in. They did not have my permission or any other landowner's permission to put that in. And now it's a real bucket of worms. As
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Brock here,
Yes, sir.
and I'm pretty passionate about this, folks. I really am. Not for myself, for all of us that lives on Autumn Road. I'm trying to speak for you guys too. If I miss something, back me up and help me here. So like I say, we've already given up our right-of-ways. And I checked with the guarantee title again today. And to get I was down at the courthouse looking at the public records on everything. There's no mention of Autumn Road. Zero. How did that happen? We got a road. I built 2 houses back there. I went to the county to get building permits, and they assigned, oh, well, you need, okay, so I went down. I think I talked to a Penny down at the Highway District Department. He had to sign off on the building permit, and that was in about 2005 time frame. And they named that road, not Autumn, South 18th West, or not South 18th, South 14th West. 18th West, my Highway 51. So I used that street. They marked the street. Mailing comes in there. The county was maintaining from about I bought that land out there in December 7th, 98, correct. That road was put in that summer in 98. So I tied it down to the approximately date that road was put in. And like I say, we were all dummies out there, the landowners. We didn't know, didn't have a clue, did we, Mr. Berry? They just put it in. But we're stuck with it. We got to live with it. None of you folks don't have to live with it. We have to live with it. And the city's going to have to live with it. You can't say, oh, there isn't a road there, so pretend there, no, there is a road there. Period. End of subject. There is a road there. So, like I say, on the one side, there's no, basically there was no easements. Oh, that landlocked, when it was subdivided, was landlocked. I learned that term, just learned it. And it got me, whoa, what does that do to our property? I mean, it opened up a huge bucket of worms. Now we got to protect ourselves. And that's what we're here for, protecting ourselves. The developers, hey, develop. Well, we got to do the right thing. We got to make this a road. And it's got to be, I'm learning all of the legal beagle stuff, road maintenance agreements. Who's going to maintain it once it's in? As a private property owner, I can't afford it. And you gentlemen can't afford to keep up a public road. None of us can. That's what we got counties and cities for. That's why we pay taxes for. I pay my taxes. So anyway, like I say, I didn't hear anything about road easements on this development, or if they're going to be putting in a road easement. Did anybody mention road easements back there? None? Okay. No road easements. Nobody wants to give up the property. But we'll take it off the other side, but then we don't want to do anything. But people are gonna have to give up a little bit of property for road easements. And it's these developers. Who's making the most money on it? It all boils down to one thing, money. Hey, everybody's entitled to make money. If I can make it, I'd do the same thing. But you gotta be fair. I hope everybody understands. These developers, whoever does, it's gotta be fair with us. We're just the little ants out there. So anyway, if we can't agree on a road before these projects start, and this isn't the only project that's going out there from what I gather. I got your little plot here that you sent me. City is over here, county, you know. Down here is county, and going out towards, so it's I don't see any county, is there any county people here? No. So this is a city-county project. It is not just a city nightmare. It's also a county nightmare. So the county and the city are going to have to work together with us residents. And I think you'll find the people living on Autumn Road and that's got property will work with you guys and the county. All we're asking for is a fair deal. That's it. End of subject. I can't think of anything. I just know that the easements was a big main thing that we have to consider right now. If the easements don't get enforced and the setbacks enforced, I know that there's setbacks that the city's got because they got a piece of property in the city. Oh, you can't build this close to your fence, so I abide by that. This lady knows that. Worked with you pretty good. But anyway, like I say, that's where we're at out here. And I'm not a very good speaker, and I'm not a public speaker, and I'm not a professional. But I am adamant about the right things being done. And you folks in here, you get paid the big bucks. We need to make big decisions and make it happen for everybody. I believe in that. I'll end it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Come on up. Just need your name and your address.
Debbie Wickham, 2616 East Brace Drive, Meridian, Idaho. And I'm going to speak as a friend of the Isagary family who own 10 acres on not the road, Autumn. I have a deed that I could share with Brock, showing that they do already have granted an easement on the east 40 feet of their property, and they are willing, as the gentleman just said, to also cooperate to try to get this dedicated to the city for an actual road, a city road, not a private road. And they would also be willing to share information with the neighbors to cooperate with each other. Okay? So, yes, I will.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm Paul and Christine Lee, 1025 Southwest Autumn Avenue. We are on Autumn Avenue. I love Dan.
Infamous.
Dan, I love Dan. He's fighting the good fight. I know a lot of us really don't want a road there. We'd like to have improvements because whoever opened up that road, what did you say it was the highway district? It's a mess right now. You got people come up, down, they sit there and they throw garbage out, think it's a four-wheel drive trail, and it's just kind of gotten into a mess. And us, the neighbors, we moved there because it's kind of in the country. And if we have a big old road in there, there goes the neighborhood for us. And
Well, we have animals, we have children,
Yeah.
you know, and it already is a freeway. I mean, the
Yeah.
potholes are horrible and people are still driving through at 50, 60 miles an hour. They go through drunk, they go through and do drugs and park down at the end of the road.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a problem, and
Yeah, so, and then having, which I know there's, you know, there has to be growth in Mount Home. Well, we do know that. I know we're not gonna stop it, but being that this is a, you know, income property just down the street from us, down the dirt road from us, it's kind of concerning for us. And, even if it is blocked off there, you know, it's gonna affect us in a negative way no matter what. Now, having that many people in a 10-acre, can you imagine? I owned 10 acres before. I can't imagine 100 families living in a 10-acre spot on top of each other, especially right there.
I guess one
that can-
question I have, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, is there is a what is a sewage pond? What do you call that? That's out there that's next to that property?
It's one property over, so you got the property that's right there, yeah,
So what's happening with that? I mean, it's nasty.
Yeah, that we can smell, and that's in the city, correct? No, I know it's had none, oh, it's not, that's
Oh, it's
county?
Not yet. Process.
So what's gonna see, and that's just, you know, that might be another whole ball, another can of worms that we're gonna probably open up here again tonight, but,
I'm trying to figure out.
Can you point at that again?
you know, and then having, so what, and my, later on down the road, what are the setbacks for their property? That's what I would like to know, what their setback would be. So let's just say that we all agree eventually, or somehow we can't stop it, and there's gonna be a road put down Autumn. That means we lose, because our, you know, like someone said, our property does go across the road. So do they have a setback? They have to be 30 feet or 50 feet like I do when I build a shop there? Because I wasn't able to build, I know I'm in the county, but I wasn't able to build a shop. I have to be, I think, 50 feet in the county or 30 feet or something like
20 or
that.
30.
Yeah, from the front of my property. The side is like 20 feet. Do they have to follow the same rules?
It'll be city, yeah, it'll be city setbacks, yes.
Okay, so then they won't be right on the road. They'll be 20 feet back.
One's a side and then the other ones are backs, so.
Right. And another concern is, are there any 2 stories going in?
Towards Autumn.
Towards, you know, are there any 2-story, or are they all single story?
So the maximum height for that district is 30. So there could be 2 stories.
But if we look at the plan, the 2 stories seem to be more towards Rolling Hills. The fourplexes seem to be more towards Rolling Hills, if I'm reading the plan right.
Oh, that's right, yeah, they were, yeah. So anyways, you have anything else that you wanna?
Well, I guess, you know, I know I'm kind of talking about the future, but I'm a realtor in town. I know Corey Barton brought the rest of Rolling Hills, so eventually I've heard there's 500 homes going in there. So this is gonna, again, be another issue when he decides to develop that property.
And we'll be in here. And that'll be like huge then, because he's probably got deeper pockets than these other guys do, so.
So in talking,
prepared.
right, so when you're talking, if you guys were to take over the road and we get this figured out, are we talking 60 foot, I mean, it has to be a 60-foot wide road? Do we have any idea what we're looking at for that?
No.
We don't.
No.
You don't even wanna deal with it.
No.
Okay.
Anyways, that's our concerns for right now. Thanks, guys.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Shane Stevenson, I'm on 1255 Southwest Rolling Hills. I'm on the opposite side of all of these folks. I'm not on the Autumn Hills side. I'm looking at it from the other side. The other point of view is the high density and the, if what you're saying that Autumn Road quote unquote doesn't exist and we put up a type 3 barricade and stop all those people, now that pushes 200 plus cars out one road, because there's really only one road in through there. It's 12th Street, South 12. So we're pushing out 200 more cars out that subdivision, out right past, I guess I'll be selfish, right past my house, right past my road, my children. I'm I'm a proponent just like these guys. I understand Mountain Home's gonna grow, and I understand that. I always saw that growing with single-family homes, just like what we have beside us, just like what we have in front of us. And I see that being a way less of an impact on the area of single-family homes instead of multi and tri-family homes and quadruple family homes. Just like the gentleman said a few minutes ago, I mean, over 200 people, you know, over 200 cars, families in that subdivision, in that area, just gonna push a lot of, I mean, I don't know how many people have tried to get out, but, you know, Southwest Rolling Hills, 12th is getting busy, 5th is getting really busy, like she said, with all the Corey Barton homes coming in there. Southwest Haskett, it's almost a nightmare to try to get out between the dental center and the eye center out onto the main road. You can't do it. That's 200 more cars that are going to be getting out to try to go either to the base or into town, and that's where they're all going to go, is out there. So I see a much larger impact other than that. I mean, possibly traffic signals out on American Legion, so we can get out on that road, you know, to funnel those cars. I wouldn't be opposed to an autumn road going in. I understand it's a nightmare. I see the cars drive back through there too and go out there. My concern is more the density that we're looking at. I understand it meets the minimum requirement, but I guess I wouldn't be opposed to regular single-family homes, but I am pretty opposed to this type of density being put in on this section of town. I would think that there would be a much more suitable location for a higher density population for like this type of a development.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't stand up and comment a little bit.
Could you state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Barry Peterson, 1111 Poplar Drive. And if you could put that deal up there where you showed the lot.
The site plan?
Well, the one you had up there the whole
This one?
time before.
Was it
I'll
this one
show
right
you.
here?
This one here.
That one? Alright, this is that one. It's just colored to show the different lot types.
Well, you had a Google shot of it, I think. Or it might not have been Google, but it showed my land relative to the subdivision.
Oh, yes, I am aware. It is this one.
That one.
Yeah, that's close enough. This end of my pencil, I learned from the last meeting I was at.
You could give him the little nice one.
This
so don't
end's
poke
sharp,
his-
this end's dull.
Brock, give him the little pointer in there. The black pen. Nope. Yep, give him that. There you go.
Did I hear correctly that this property is currently zoned something different than R4, or this is R4 now and you're gonna change it?
That is R4 now, and it is not being proposed to have any change.
Well, an issue for me, and I'm the owner of this land up here, I expect to be irrigating this, and I have water rights for 40 acres, of which this is 20. And I'm surrounded by the city from here up about 2,000 feet. I'm adjacent to the city, and each individual homeowner there has their own fence, which is all well and good, pretty much all the way up. But some people put in a really sturdy fence, and some people put in an almost fence. And over the 20-plus years my wife and I have lived here now, some of the fences, Mother Nature sent a little wind along there and tipped them over. Invariably, they think that we co-own that fence. We were there before there was a house on there, and we had no desire to put up the fence. But I have learned over time to be a little more decisive in my relationship with those that govern me. So now, I have a fence that runs here, and it's a wire fence. And when I say wire, it's netted so that my animals can't get through, even my dog, and the neighbor's dog can't get into mine. But it doesn't stop the neighbors from throwing stuff. My fence is 5 foot high. Doesn't stop the neighbors from throwing stuff over. Nor does these people have 6-foot fences, most of them. And inevitably, they throw their dog a tennis ball or something and it kicks it or whatever. So I get a lot of residential debris on my property, and I make a regular visit around my property, and if it's sticks and stones, I put them in my pocket and get rid of them. If it's garbage, I graciously try to give it back to them. They're always receptive. It's just the nature of being neighbors, right? So now, if this goes in, it's troublesome to me that we have the density here. The traffic itself doesn't affect me today, but it probably will, because I own this lot. Whether or not Autumn Road ever becomes a real road, I had to buy this lot to ensure myself that I could have access to this piece of ground if I needed to off that street for some reason. Nobody made this available to me. They graciously let me buy it. Can you believe that? So now, when I look at this, and the fence is not up here where it's drawn, it's here. This is a straight line. And that screening idea seems to me to be a very good idea, because I have a trailer court on the west side of me. Their fence is this high. They put it in about 89, 88, 1988 or 89. A nice fence like this. But their dogs have a great pleasure in seeing what my animals are doing on my side of the fence. Occasionally, one of my animals wants to see what's going on their side of the fence. And so I've learned over time that a really good fence is a sweet blessing for everybody. What's that saying? Good fences make good neighbors. So now my deal, the screening fence from here to here, seems to me to be a very great idea, because when I go to farming here and I'm sprinkling, inevitably I'm going to offend somebody. Or if I spray for weed, I may get a trickle over. I try to be very careful about it, but Mother Nature talks sometimes louder than I do. So relative to that screening fence, I went over and shot a picture of a piece of property on the north side of the base road at Highway 51. And if we can slip this, does this move around so you can go over and look at that?
It moves around.
Maybe we...
Right there, but it's not Google,
Okay,
but I know.
that's the end of it?
That's the end of the world.
Okay, let's go to Google, if you will, to where 51 goes in front of the veterinary shop. Are you familiar with where the vet shop is? Nice vet.
It's Chris Line.
Bring it down. No, the other way. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. This over here, this subdivision, has an 8-foot fence here. And the way they did that, they have a 6-inch footing, an 18-inch stem wall, and then a 6-foot board fence attached to wood post, or to steel posts that are in the stem, or that 18-inch wall. So it gives them an 8-foot fence for screening, and I'm sure they were asked to do it by Historical Plan Zoning Board. I have a picture of it if that's helpful, so you see it. And they also did a screening fence. McDonald's, and here's, West 6th, West 8th. Oh, right here, they got a screening fence along here. And it's on a concrete footing, or, footing and a wall, stem wall, short stem wall. And the city shop over here, they have a fence around theirs. It's not a, it's a substantially high chain link fence. It's better than 6 foot, you know, it's kind of a security feature as well. But they required a screening fence to be put around this property. Runs behind McDonald's and over to Haskett. I'll get this picture up here so that maybe I spoke out of turn. Okay, that's the fence. That's an 8-foot tall fence just south of where Knight's Veterinary Clinic is.
Can we get a copy of that from you, Barry?
Sure.
Okay.
They required it of the LDS Church when they put it on Haskett Street, a screening fence. This one was put in way ahead of that though. This was farm ground when they put the subdivision in over there. And that's an 8-foot fence. So somebody historically has done those 8-foot fences. And it'll help me be a better neighbor to them, and them be a better neighbor to me. My experience has been my propensity to try to be a good neighbor is stronger than the guy on the other side of the fence. They feel the same way. They feel their propensity to be a good neighbor is stronger than my propensity to be a good neighbor. So a good fence makes both of us a better neighbor. And so whatever happens there, I would hope that the screening, because of the density of the population and the disposition to be who we are, just being people, I think we need to be careful with the density's impact on the rest of the neighborhood. And in addition to having a screening fence, shade does a terrible thing to a crop or a garden. I grew up at 965 North 10th East. The neighbor was a descendant of the Waters family. They had a huge tree in their backyard. My dad was from Cuna and he wanted to have a garden. And he cursed, he liked the neighbor, but he cursed that tree for shading his garden for better than half of the growing day. So in addition to that, if they want a tree, put it in the front yard. Don't put any trees in the backyard. Inevitably, if a tree's on the south, they're going to steal sun from me during the day. If they were on the north side of me, they could plant all the trees they want. But for me, it's impactful. It's a big deal to my use. And I've only been working on this project for more than 20 years. And I have my life vested in it. You can tell by looking at my hearing aids and the wrinkles on me. I'm no spring chicken. So I'm anxious. I want to be fair. I want to be honest. But at the same time, there's an obligation to do something that's right, which includes the care of that road. I think these guys got a valid concern on that. And Dan, bless his heart, the first house went in on Autumn Road before it was Autumn Road in 1968. The second one went in within about 3 years of that. They were the only two out there for the first maybe 20 years. But he is right that Elmore, or the Mountain Home Highway had their equipment on that road. And I'm sure that they're going to be mildly bothered if somebody imposes upon them to want to further develop the road. But at the same time, if we're going to be good neighbors with each other, we need the strength of the community force. What I mean by that, the government, to make it happen, because people like Dan and me by ourselves, there's no way we can put in a road like that. And no matter what you do, I've tried to protect myself by having access to my field regardless of what happens. I appreciate very much your patience with me.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Real quick one, since we're talking about fences. On behalf of the Elmore Soil and Water Conservation District, one of the things that we advise people on is, this is a question of you guys. Do you know where the herd district boundaries are? How many of you don't even know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay, herd district law says that outside the boundaries is free range, and it's the responsibility of the landowner. You have a house out there, it's your responsibility to fence their livestock out. But when you're inside the herd district boundary, and you have a house there, it's your responsibility to fence your livestock in. And we didn't know, I don't know where the boundaries are there, but people should be made aware of that. For example, Rich, the house I grew up in is inside and the house your folks were in, that's outside. That boundary goes right down, Hurricane Lane? I mean, that's not that far from town. So it's something to be aware of.
Thank you, David.
You know, David brings up a great point there. It's a fence to hold an animal is a lot different than a fence to keep people at peace with each other. It's just the way it
is. Anybody else?
I got one last thing I forgot to ask is, I had heard through the rumor mill, and I guess I would like the council to answer, I heard that these were government subsidized housing as well. And that would also, that's the only thing I'm asking, is if that can be clarified. Is it just multifamily housing, or is it multifamily government subsidized housing? Because that's a whole nother can of worms.
Jeff?
So before testimony is taken a second time or a question offered, does anyone else, Mr. Chairman, I would say, does anyone else have any testimony?
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, comments?
For the record, I guess, Dennis Bishop, address 2166 Southwest Smith Road. But my property, I got 5 acres in the corner of Autumn right there, so it concerns me. But about that road, like I said, we're concerned with. Well, I've been going on 6 years now. In Smith Road, we're still dirt and gravel. In the minute, a lot of people, as soon as they turn off the Highway 51 and head back in, towards town. I'm retired military, so I'm not saying nothing against the military, but them guys, they're in a hurry to get home sometimes, and even during the day, they would pill out. When they come off Highway 51, they're already pulling out, doing sideways, getting as much speed as they can to get down Smith Road. And that stuff was, if I walk by my fence sometimes, I get gravel thrown on me, and that was bad enough. And but once they paved it, now they're coming down 80, 100 mile an hour sometimes. I mean, they're just, because they can get that speed up now, they're not, the gravel, they couldn't go fast, they would pill out. But now, and the sheriff's been out there, I talked with them, and I feel like that road right there, Dan, I gotta disagree on that. If that was to pave that Autumn Road there, and they're gonna be in a hurry, people getting down there, that Autumn Road, they're gonna be speeding down it, and they live right on it, their driveways are right there on it. And most of us, I don't right now, I just got a cat, but, we got animals out there, all of us. And that's why we're out in the country. We can, you know, live like country folk. And your dogs and run around and stuff, and them cars will be coming down there so fast. I mean, and the kids, like even on Smith Road, we still got, you know, we got people that ride horses down there. We got kids riding bikes all the time, and I mean, and Autumn Road, there's kids going down there walking, and you feel safe. But if it gets paved, I mean, it's going to be a danger, I think, to our, you know, to us kids and stuff. And garbage, I go out in front of my property all the time picking up garbage, even on Smith Road. People just toss out their beer cans and everything else on the way home, I guess, you know. And like you said, Autumn Road might just more trash coming in and everything. And we're all concerned, like I said, because our property goes across the road, how far is it set back and everything. And, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to stay all night. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
So I'm Jane Cook, 1434 Edward Street. I'm opposite. I have just a couple questions. Is the BlackRock Asset Management Corporation involved in this endeavor at all? That's one thing. And the other thing is that I've had the pleasure of walking along and watching you teach the rodeo maneuvers out there with the horses, and that's been enjoyable. But in my walks, I've noticed we have burrowing owls on that property, which I believe are a protected species. I'm going to go ahead and I'll call the Sierra Club or the Audubon Society to see if there's anything that they can do, but you may want to make that a consideration. I've seen them with my own eyes, so I don't know if that'll throw a wrench in the works, but I just think you should be aware of it.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay, you're welcome.
Jeff, would I ask for any additional comments at this point?
I think if someone wanted to offer more testimony versus a question, yes, yeah.
Okay.
But we need to make sure that the applicant's representative is able to
Absolutely
speak at the very end.
Yep, definitely. Does anybody else have any questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Stevenson asked a question about the whether or not there was subsidized housing. The question in my mind, if I read something correctly, why they're going to have apartments to rent and subsidize the rent. The government will subsidize the rent for people that are going to live there. Is that an accurate assessment?
We'll probably tackle that once we get all finished through with the public hearing.
Provide low-income housing for people?
So that's, I don't know, we're gonna call on, were you gonna call on Mr. Stevenson?
I was.
Did you have another, so your question is there subsidized housing?
Is it low-income housing where the government subsidizes the rent?
Okay.
Did I get that right, Shane? That's the question?
That was the question.
Okay. Thanks.
And Shane Stevens.
Yeah, so we don't need to call him, that's his only
that's the
question,
question.
okay. All right.
Okay.
I have one more question. Christine Lee, 1025 Autumn. You guys did a impact, the traffic impact report. Is that public record, or is that something you can see?
And Christine, you can, because a traffic impacts report's normally over 100 pages. That's the executive summary, but you can request the entire report.
I've never seen one of these before. That's pretty cool. That shows,
That's
Awesome.
I've never seen
Thank
one
you.
of those.
They're very cool.
It's like, how many people turn in which way?
Anybody else?
Just something Dennis Bishop again. Just something I'm going to talk about. Also is when this is about the housing and stuff, subsidized and everything. My wife and I were talking the other day because I took down my wire fence. I had barbed wire around my field out there, and I bought all these panels, put my panels up to match in the front of my yard, And now we're talking about, we're gonna probably have to put up the highest fence we can and put more barbed wire up because we're gonna have low income housing, like it sounds like, or whatever, where anytime you got a bunch of renters, you're gonna have a lot more problems, you know? And that, you know, with all that people, you get more drugs coming in, they know, and people not caring about your property, cutting across your field and all that, so that's a big concern. You know, I gotta just say what kind of fence to put up, and what are they gonna put up? The developers on how to fence, and what kind of fence is it gonna be? You know, solid fence or, you know, whatever, so.
Okay, thank you, sir. Last call. This is it. No more after this. I just want to make sure everybody knows that.
I get one more time.
Yes, I'm going to say that again. Just again, this is a recommendation to the city council. Please understand that as we go through and deliberate all of the comments, concerns, and questions you have. As a commission, we take into account everything that is said from surrounding community members. I believe it's important to work as good neighbors. I believe it's important that we try our best to come up with a solution that works in favor of everybody. Not everybody will be happy, that much we know. But at the same time, I do believe that when we send our recommendation, please go to city council and have the same conversations with them and talk to the council members there as well. Because ultimately it is them that's making the choice and the decision to move forward or not. We're just the recommending body. So if there's nobody else, I would like to invite the developer up.
Well, I'm the engineer.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
So as far as whether it's government subsidized, I can't say for sure. I don't believe so. I haven't had any kind of, my contract is with a private entity who purchased the property, and in all, you know, I've talked to the architect and him, and I don't know of any government involvement whatsoever.
Mr. Chair, this is where I just want to tread lightly.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, so the existence or non-existence of government subsidies is not a condition. It's not part of the consideration. It's not in the zoning ordinance about the source of the funding for any of these homes. So the source of funding is purely between the developer. It's a private transaction. Whether an individual purchaser obtains a government subsidy through the mechanism of a VA loan, which is subsidized or subsidized directly from the government, is irrelevant to whether or not this meets the standards for approval under the city zoning ordinance.
Yep. Okay.
Full stop.
Understood.
Then as far as what's going to happen to Autumn Road, we would be looking, I mean, we'd be happy to comply with whatever the city decides to do with that roadway. I'm sure that the owner would anticipate that he would be treated in the same way as all the adjacent properties. But given that, I'm sure he'd be happy to do whatever the city decides needs to be done with that roadway.
Nancy?
Well, I have some questions as far as who is jurisdiction where. And my understanding, this is a mountain home highway district, put it in. Then my
No,
sorry,
Barry.
sorry,
No, sorry, Barry.
then we can't say anything, or even, well, I shouldn't even get there because I don't know. But there's nothing that we can make anybody do as far as that road's concerned. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair.
Good picture.
Commissioner Berletic, that is correct. What I would urge you at this juncture would be, as far as traffic and improvements that need to be made, I would look at the traffic study provided by the applicant to see if the local roadway infrastructure can indeed satisfy the requirements of not only the neighborhood which is currently there, but what is proposed. But as far as for Autumn Road,
I would just urge this body, for the sake of the decision of the recommendation in this moment, it isn't there. Even though we all know it is there.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Jeff.
So the city boundary is also at the edge of the development. So that roadway, whatever you want to call it, is not in the city limits. So that road traverses each private property owner's property going from north to south at some width. Each deed, like this one property owner has a, you have an easement across, so there's a property owner that's testified that there's a recorded easement. We don't know that about the remainder of them, and it's not really, do we know it? We don't.
That's what I was wondering. That's good to know, because I'm gonna find out tomorrow.
So-
That's fine.
What you have in front of you is a traffic impact study that's based on entry and exit from one side. And there are property owners who have testified that they have concerns about additional traffic on a road that is fairly maintained, according to testimony that you've received. And so their concern is, will this subdivision empty cars onto a road that they're responsible for maintaining? They are the highway district. And the developer has or the developer's representative or his engineer has testified that they can put in a barrier that will preclude anyone from driving on that unless and until that road somehow changes its responsibility. But you've also heard testimony from property owners that aren't interested or might not be interested in improving that road and creating a through road. So you could have some property owners that agree to develop it and make it a through road and some that don't. And from a legal perspective, that's an extremely difficult thing to sort out. And so it's beyond the scope of anything we could do this evening. So what's before you is a plan to develop a subdivision that has an entry and exit all the way through 12th and Haskett, and that's up to you to decide whether or not. But that's what that traffic impact study is based on. That is out there. It did not contemplate any traffic going through that other roadway, which I have driven on, and it is not in the best of shape.
Chairman.
Travis.
If I can ask, what are the grades of these roads on 12th and Haskett here? I know we've traveled there a few times. I'm more curious than anything else, but
Chairman, Commissioner, I couldn't speak to what the grades are. I mean, I can look at what their, what the traffic, what their executive summary said. It says it'll create, first of all, it says all intersections operate within acceptable levels of standards.
Right.
This proposed development anticipates 819 daily trips with 69 at peak AM and 84 at peak PM. So, and it said, again, one of the questions was, 75% of the development is they're looking at that's the way it's going to go to Air Base Roadway. So, and that's just going off of this, but level of service for the roads would stay with it, they might go down, but they're going to still be a level of service that's acceptable.
Billy, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Just kind of staying on the subject of traffic. Since there's not a direct and it seems like it has to weave, what is the response time for emergency vehicles? Is there a set limit?
There's a station currently right off of West 8th. There's a station number 3.
Chairman?
Yep.
Commissioners, reading down on that, I see no worse than level B.
okay. Okay, I
Rich,
see it
where
now.
did you say that they have the peak? How much this development would?
First page, the executive summary.
Thank you.
It's in the first paragraph and then the third and
fourth paragraph.
A lot of new trips, Commission. 819 net new daily trips in one road. That's a lot.
It's also important to note that the traffic impact study that they had created at the time was based on 116 units. So basically, the traffic study you are seeing is based for a greater density than what is proposed, which is only.
Anybody do some quick math for
But
me?
note that the request
I
is
can
only
do
for
math.
100 units.
So how much does that reduce the net new daily trips?
Like 15%.
The reduction of the duplex, or with it, what kind of reduction was it?
I just knew it was a reduction of a total 116 units to 100.
I also want to address the concern that you're putting density. Density came up multiple times. And I know density is something that's going to happen, and that new development's going to bring in more density. Something to consider is the surrounding area. I do understand that this is zoned R4, but density is something that we need to consider as a commission as well. So, commission.
I always harken back, and you all know this, is that we have to make a decision on what we're presented with and what the code says we can do, what the
Comprehensive plan.
well, comprehensive plan, but also the zoning. And we can't summarily just make our own rules. And that's what I'm always worried about, is because if you start making up your own rules, then doesn't work.
Do you feel as though that's what's happening, what we're going to do?
Not at this point. I mean, I don't know what the suggestion's going to be, but if everything is within the parameters that are in the code and that are legal, I don't know how you can make any other decisions.
So, Mr. Chairman, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was actually just going to add, Chairman, if I can. So we had talked about the 30 feet total being over the top, and he talked about, I'm assuming the view. It looks like there's only going to be 4 fourplexes, which I would assume would breach that 30-foot mark there. And this entire back wall here is only a duplex, which I would assume, this is my assumption, this is not based on fact, that would be a single level.
The
Did I assume the
fourplexes
same?
are the pink ones,
Mm-hmm.
and no, the owner is not anticipating exceeding any standards, any requirements. Their intention is to build within the existing ordinance, without any variances whatsoever.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what's tough about this body. I'm going to be honest with you. When we look at everything that comes to us, we hear everything that you're concerned about. Commissioner Biletic is absolutely correct. If there is nothing that is withstanding us approving it, then ultimately we have nothing to say. That's kind of like the body that we're at. I see a problem with Autumn Road, but Right now, Autumn Road is out of question, and I think that's gonna be a city problem later on. I do. As for the development, it meets code. It meets, see, now that's where I have a problem with the comprehensive plan.
I got it.
Comprehensive plan would say that you would want to build to match the surrounding area.
Mr. Chairman.
Really?
Just to piggyback on that, looking, and I'm just citing directly from the comprehensive plan, 8.2, goal to protect and enrich Mount Hope small town character and community lifestyle through updates and additions to policy, code, and practice. Item B is where you get in, encourage compatible infill development and redevelopment with, which will minimize the impact to the existing landscape of the community and will maximize efficiency and infrastructure connectivity. I think it's a double-edged sword here because we are maximize efficiency with basically this development, but it's going to have a impact to the landscape of the community with the additional traffic going down the roads. Because the additional 800 trips per day is going to make an impact to those living on that road. So I feel like we're talking, this is saying two things. Like you said, it's hard to, on one hand, the comprehensive plan is maximize efficiency with infrastructure connectivity, which I feel this one does. But in the back part of that, or the prefix of that sentence is minimize impact to the existing landscape of the community. So that community is all single-family houses, and now we're going to add a rental subdivision project within a infield of R4 that, again, just brainstorming out loud, everything with residential single-family, now we're going to add this complex here that doesn't truly match the homogeneous, if you will, of that area.
So, we've shifted gears. So we had a zoning request, and we've had a lot of zoning requests coupled with annexations. This application is different because this is a subdivision application. It does not have any zoning. It doesn't have any rezoning. It doesn't have any request to vary any of these zoning code standards. So this is a subdivision application that requires compliance with the zoning district. Now, if the applicant was going to put a small nuclear power plant,
Right, no,
then you would have something to say about what was going in there.
And maybe I'm reading too much into the comprehensive plan because,
Well, so you're not asked to review its consistency with the comp plan. You are allowed, however, by virtue of the statute and to some extent the city code, each such ordinance may provide for mitigation of the effects of subdivision development on the ability of political subdivisions of the state, including school districts, to deliver services without compromising quality of service to current residents or imposing, and then that's where the development impact fee ordinance comes in.
right.
Denial of a subdivision permit or approval of a subdivision permit with conditions unacceptable to the landowner may be subject to the regulatory takings analysis, which I have brought up to you guys when we were having school on zoning. And we can, if an applicant wants me to render one, believing that the conditions are too onerous, but I think the idea of consistency with a comp plan is for a conditional use permit, which is one you considered earlier, so that's where you're called upon to do that. But a subdivision doesn't necessarily implicate the comp plan, and if you rely on it to add standards that don't exist beyond those that are in the zoning code or in the subdivision ordinance, you're in an area that you may subject us to a takings analysis.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, for a rezone, yes, but for this is a subdivision. So we look at the comp plan, but it's not truly 100% applicable then.
It's a guide for how you should grow and how you should zone, but its applicability in a subdivision application is limited to the extent to which that subdivision deviates from the zoning code or in a plan unit development.
And I'm not trying to split hairs, I'm not,
Right, no,
but
it's a-
I'm reading it as, maximize infrastructure connectivity and minimize impact to this and landscape. Being single-family homes, then you're going to add a multifamily unit around single-family homes. That basically is both things. We maximize them, but yet we have an impact to the landscape. But you're saying this is, I guess I'm.
Can I try?
Sure. Well.
I just want to make sure that
Let's
I'm
try.
reading this right. That's
So, from what I'm gathering from what Mr. Schroeder's saying, is do you remember the Thunderbolt Landing? Okay, that was an annex and zone. It was at that moment that we looked at the comprehensive plan to determine whether or not it meets and follows the growth of the comprehensive plan. This is not an annex and zone. This has already been dedicated R4. It has already been zoned R4. So because of that, it meets everything within code and ordinance, and that is more of a guide for annex and zoning. Did I get that right, Jeff?
Yes. So the other thing, though, I would add is, to the extent there are fourplexes, that do we still have conditional use permits for fourplexes? So, okay, so no. I mean, it's not out the window. You certainly should consider it.
No, and I just want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence of that and reading into this, and it's already R4, but does it, yeah.
Can I just throw in this I find interesting, and maybe it is and maybe it's not, but if you look at the current zoning map, those single-family homes are in R4. All of that is R4. And they just chose to build single-family homes, but they could have put multifamily homes there.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Just so you know, not at the time was multifamily permitted in the way that it is now when those homes were built. Yes, it would have been possible there, but they would have had to do a conditional use permit, which was an extra step. Our code was recently amended that a conditional use permit on top of the platting is no longer needed. So the requirement for multifamily was a little bit more strenuous in the past than it was now.
Mr. Chairman, so it's R4. What we're looking at is allowed there, right? The road, which is a major point of contention here with the public, is outside of our ability to do anything with, right? The developer's going to put a barricade at that point to try to limit what they can. I think so far we've satisfied everything. The traffic impact study has identified that the streets that are going to be utilized, absent the mystery street, that can handle that traffic, right? It's met all that. So the only thing I'm left with at this point is Mr. Peterson's question about fences. I'm a little ignorant to any requirement that may satisfy that request. And, these owls, this could be a real problem if I don't know where we would get involved in that, but I think it's interesting, for sure, and I've seen government sites completely shut down for endangered species. So I don't know where this body may get involved with endangered species. But as far as the road goes, as far as the traffic goes, as far as the development goes, it meets everything we're supposed to consider that I can see. I don't know about fences, and I don't know about owls yet.
You got good questions, though.
No, I know they are. I'm just saying I don't know where we would get involved now that someone has mentioned the possibility of an endangered species on that site.
And in that's the case, we should vent that out then, right? So
I have no
It's
idea.
nothing to do with us.
Having a clue, that's unique, very unique.
Rocks and deep study, Jeff, anything?
So preliminary plat, commission review states that part of your review is the other health, safety, or environmental problems that may be brought to the commission's attention. I would ask Mr. Schroeder if, in regards to density, if that has an issue with safety, being that we did have a member from the public held a sentiment that he believes the increased density could create potential harm with the increased traffic. And then maybe based upon that point of review, that
that potentially the commission could do something. I don't know.
Well, that's just traffic. So that's addressed in the traffic impact study. And so an increase in traffic is, an increase in traffic due to that subdivision is no different than an increase in traffic due to anything else. And so I don't know that that can be mitigated or if the commission can make that
a
standard.
basis.
In addition, so, and as to the environmental concern about the presence of burrowing owls, that risk and that responsibility is solely on the back of the developer. So if the developer becomes, wants to plat this and put in a subdivision, and then discovers there are burrowing owls legitimately, they have to deal with that, however that.
So that does not fall back on the city?
If you look at the first condition that we normally put on all of our reports, it's sort of a blanket condition that they have to abide by all local, state, and federal regulations.
What about fencing?
The city allows up to a 7-foot fence to be built without it being engineered.
So is the developer responsible for putting in the back fences, or is that up to the person who buys?
So I can tell you that I looked up the open range maps, which was a first for me. And Elmore County, we are not within any of those designated areas. So I can speak to that as far as fencing required based on being in a herd designated area.
Well, more clearly, open range ends at the city boundary. Open range doesn't operate within the city limits. And within the city limits, there are rules about animals at large or possession of animals, more than 3 chickens, this sort of thing, so. That's no buffalo.
No alpacas, can't have
Can't have
alpacas.
those.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we've had a lot of different subdivisions that we've asked to have fencing put around different areas.
Okay. Commission?
So, Mr. Chairman, real quick, not to beat up the fence thing too much, but there was a couple questions about keeping animals out and open range and so forth, and then there was also a question about essentially good neighbor fences and so forth. And the one prior to this, we looked at that one apartment that had that type of a screen type thing. Would this, I guess, was part of my question, would this require any such fence in any of the areas that were identified when Mr.
Be along the
Peterson
north
was-
boundary. Whatever butts up to Mr. Berry.
Right, would that be a requirement, is what I'm asking for?
I believe this body may have discretion to make that a requirement based upon the counsel that we received from Mr. Schroeder. One of the entire reasons that we have public hearings is to solicit the public based upon specific areas. I would hand it off to our esteemed legal counsel, whether or not.
It's not clear to me that you could require the developer to put in a fence, but this is a preliminary plat, and so that's not part of a plat. It could be part of a conditional use permit for a specific building. So Mr. Peterson's testimony about requirements of putting in fencing, I'm not sure how the fencing came to be with the high-density housing off of the, well, that's not even in the city limits, is it, or is it?
It is.
It is now,
But I can't speak to it.
So it would be up to each home builder or each lot owner, or maybe the developer who develops it to decide the quantity and extent of fencing that they need. There aren't, I'm not aware of any provision in code that would allow us to mandate that, particularly that robust of a fence. There's certainly standards about how fences have to be put in, so if they're inclined to blow over onto someone else's property, there are certainly remedies for that problem. The building inspector can make sure that fences can carry the wind load and stay upright. But in terms of mandating a fence, but as Mr. Peterson correctly points out, good fences make good neighbors, and most people want to have fences. Whether they're sufficient to keep garbage out of his field or not, I don't know that that's a requirement that we have.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, and I don't think it's I agree with the council. I don't think it's a requirement. I mean, if we look at Morning View, it's kind of, we look at the same kind of open area, except this is just a different spot. They did put, but because they wanted to, kind of keep it enclosed, and that's all backyards to Mr. Peterson's property. Tumbleweeds never blow around here, and I would imagine that probably, it's Mr. Hahn and the developer probably, we'd have a conversation, I mean, we know that's gonna blow into their, just gonna keep going through there. So, I mean, that's kind of some things. I think it's something we can certainly talk to him about, but I mean, if it's a recommendation, I don't see, we've done it in the past, so.
Fire Commission. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I can get this so that it even makes partial sense. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Autumn Park subdivision preliminary plat consisting of approximately 10 acres located west of Southwest Rolling Hills Avenue, abutting Rolling Hills number 5 subdivision, and just east of, dare I say it, Autumn Avenue.
I have it first. Do I have a second?
Wait.
Oh, sorry. Oh, my bad. I apologize. I just got
I
excited.
have to go through, I need to read all these, don't I? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Share that.
Number 1.
That's
In there, okay. Number 1, subject to site plan amendments as required by building, public works, fire, and zoning officials to comply with applicable city codes and standards. Number 2, all future development will comply with the uses and bulk and coverage controls of the R4 zoning district. Number 3, all future development shall adhere to the R4 residential development design standards as found in 9-19 Article B of Mountain Home City Code. Number 4, prior to submission of building permits, the applicant shall provide the following with either the final plat or development plan applications. A, landscape plan including little I. Outdoor spaces shall be screened when located adjacent to dumpster enclosures, loading, service areas, or other incompatible uses. And 2 little i's, all outdoor spaces shall be landscaped. B, building plans including I. Structures shall incorporate pitched roof forms having slopes between 2 to 12 and 15 to 12 or greater, not applicable to porches and dormers. Flat roofs with parapets shall also be allowed. 2, windows shall be provided in building facades facing streets. 3, buildings shall include modulation along the building facades facing and visible from public rights of way and private access driveways and roads. Flat blank walls are discouraged. And 4, when garage doors are facing the street or private driveways, they shall be set back at least 20 feet from the property line or sidewalk or edge of pavement of private street.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Travis. Mark, start with you.
Mr. Chairman, did we?
Oh, I have one more thing, excuse me. I'm so sorry, short-term memory. Okay, and 5 after that is that there will be,
There will be a level 3 barrier.
barrier.
Type 3 barricade.
type 3 barrier on, what is it, the road that's
Preventing access to Autumn.
preventing access or ingress, right?
Yep.
To Autumn Road.
Did you get all that, Brock?
Yep.
Okay. I have a first, do I have a second? Travis, we have a second.
Second.
Mark?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
And Travis?
Aye.
Motion passes. Ladies and gentlemen, please go to City Council and share your concerns there as well. Again, our hands are tied when it comes to what we can and cannot do. We have to go with zone, and that's why I strongly encourage you to go talk with City Council as well. Please do so. Thank you. We have one new business item that we need to get through to this evening, and that is for an extension request for conditional use permit applicant by Ms. Crystal Rogers Daycare. Crystal Rogers is seeking an extension of an approved conditional use permit regarding the condition of paving of the parking lot.
Can you ask for quiet, please?
Yeah.
Will you write your, I'll text it to you if you like.
Over there.
Phone number. Because mine is solely memberable, yeah.
So cool.
Then you can call me at any time you want. But
Ladies and gentlemen, we still have a meeting to attend to, so would you mind please taking your conversations outside?
I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Give it to me.
Hold on. Unless you don't mind,
No, it's rude.
would you mind taking your conversations outside for us? Thank you. All right.
I'd like to say I cleared the room, but I don't think that's the case. For the record, Crystal Rogers, address 138 West Garfield Avenue, Glenns Ferry, Idaho. Thank you for having me. Let's change one. So my original CUP, I was granted a year to get my parking lot paved. I kind of put a timeline in here as far as, and this is that property that the former Church of Christ is on. So last spring, right as I closed, I contacted 3 paving companies that Brock thought that paving would be a little bit cheaper than concrete. He's correct. Yeah, he's correct. But I couldn't find anybody locally. I prefer local. But I had one company refuse the job. 2 other companies had poor communication, didn't follow up, didn't show up. So then obviously, right after I closed, I had a couple improvement inspections, licensing, everything I have to do to get a daycare up and running. And then I had BCI come out and give me a quote. They actually said that was the best gravel parking lot they've ever seen. It's really flat. I'm not sure we want it to be flat. We probably want it to have a little bit of grade. Yeah, that's what I figured. It doesn't. And so they quoted 32, pay for it, and I about fell over. I was a little bit naive on what it costs to get a parking lot done. And so I thought, oh, okay, I got to get this business up and running so that I can get 32K to get the parking lot done. So holding pattern, weather, saving money, and then moving on to this year. So I decided to get a couple other quotes from in town. And as you can see, there's the numbers. Also fell out of my chair and rolled. And so then I was like, man, I think I can DIY this. I'm a YouTuber. I can get on there, do about anything from YouTube. I even have a coffee mug that says that. And then I thought, that's probably not what the city wants, even though that would be, probably the least expensive way. I thought, man, maybe I can get on with the highway district and learn to actually put in a parking lot, and it might save me some money. But I have a lot going on, so that's not going to happen. So I actually did finally, 2 weeks ago, get a verbal quote. I don't have it in paper yet. They have not sent it to me. But he said 20K. And so that is doable. And so I'm hoping, he said June, July, they can get me on the schedule. And that's West Dodge. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. assuming that they give me the quote and can do it.
So you just need an extension then of your,
Hoping, and that I don't have to DIY it.
What's your proposed extension?
He said June or July, so through the end of the summer, I'm thinking,
August?
when we do an extension though, can it just be like for a year? I mean, is there a specific thing or does it have to be specific?
So, daycare parking has sort of become a theme. It's a service we desperately need, and I told Crystal I do not want to shut down a daycare.
although it would free up some time.
But it may free up some time.
My time, but.
I want to state that the applicant has been very forthright in working with the city, and being forthright with how things currently are. So the way the condition is worded, that was approved by the city council, was it comes to this body. And essentially, you can make some sort of recommendation, and if Ms. Rogers was not satisfied with that, she does have the option to appeal this decision to city council and be like, I don't like what they said. But a year, just know whatever we do, that we're probably going to have other people in similar situations, perhaps come as well. And even though, and this is one of those weird things where, is it land use, is it precedent setting, is it not? I don't know. But I would believe sooner is better, but that's my professional recommendation. I can tell you that childcare is insanely important. We need that desperately.
I also need a CDL driver. Any volunteers?
So does everybody. Chairman, Commissioners, you know, I didn't really pay too much attention when this was done for a year. Most plants aren't open by March 25th, so that's kind of the one deal I think where we're looking at. I mean, I would make a recommendation that it just needs to be done before the plants close in this asphalt season. I mean, something like that would be enough. I mean, she's probably right. I mean, June, July is probably when everybody's going to be able to get to something. We have, I mean, that's just how busy things are and what's going on.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. It just really worries me because I know how things,
So we're talking end
all
of
intents and
October,
purposes.
basically, kind of in that time frame.
Jeff?
I just wanted to answer Brock's comment. It's not precedent setting. Conditional use permits by law are not setting precedent. They're based on each individual's conditions, each individual's circumstances. So by granting an extension to someone based on, well-documented extenuating circumstances, you're not committed to doing that. It's not writing off all the paved parking lots in the city. It's simply saying, this person needs more time to get this accomplished, to which she's agreed. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'm very glad you said that, because that was my concern. And I didn't know if you were going to look for another year extension. So the 1 year is expired at this point, I guess. Or will be. March 25th.
Yeah, not quite.
And you're looking for an extension of, what,
Let's just say October.
4 months? 4 months? So would it be, should I ask, I guess you don't have that quote, would the quote be available and the scheduled date be done by city council time? Will they have something
Next
more?
council, you
Right,
mean?
well,
Good
or,
question.
I don't think it has to go to.
It doesn't have to go to council.
we're doing that here. Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
I was actually, I
I
want
was
to
hoping
jump
to
in
get the
there.
quote by today.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna
Email
jump in
every
there
5
and
minutes
say
and-
that I'm gonna go with Rich on this and say the extension should be to October. I think that's fair. I think October should be a good time frame, because as you said, I think, the plant's coming up, and then when they shut down, and it gives you plenty of time to be able to, if they don't work out.
They show
you
up
have-
and they do the work.
Yes, you have time. So that's I think we should do October, personally.
Mr. Chair, one thing, I don't know if I can ask the applicant directly, with the rise in fuel costs, and since it's a fuel-based kind of,
He quoted it off the price of oil.
and that's where I'm afraid of, that he might be kind of subject to, say we go to October and we're paying $7 a gallon for diesel, is that gonna be out of the applicant affordability to do it, and we're gonna make a financial burden on her, on applicant.
Hold on, Rob.
I think a solid recommendation could be that if this body was to grant her a extension to October and she was unable to fulfill it, that she be directed to the city council, who is the elected body, who I would want to be put in the situation of respecting all of the different variables and having the ultimate decision-making power of how Ms. Rogers should proceed.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, sorry, you said something?
No, I was just, when Billy was talking about that, and this is personally, that's her business, in a sense. We shouldn't worry, can she afford it, won't she be able to? That's none of our business, I feel. Anyway, that's me.
Okay. So do I have a motion? Travis, do you have anything before we motion?
Nope, you guys buttoned it up.
All right, do we have a motion?
Yeah, you want me to do it?
Just before you do that, Mark, how do we make sure that we put in there that
October,
that she goes to city council if she is unable to meet
I think
And
we
that's
put it in
where I
there.
would look at Jeff. I believe that could be a suitable condition, that she
Well, I
go to
guess-
city
I guess-
council instead of going to this body again.
The bottom line is, in any conditional use permit, you allow something in a zone in which it's not normally allowed unless it meets certain conditions. One of those happens to be this. If the use continues and is not complying with the conditions, then the city is in the unfortunate position of having to enforce its conditional use permit.
i.e. free up my time.
Right, which is, and yeah, right, and so we would say, you know, hey, here's the letter, you're not compliant, blah, 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 you need to cease this use until you come into compliance. Typically, it's not something as benign as a gravel parking lot, it's typically noise or, you know, something like that. So, and that's exactly right. So what would happen, the deadline's blown, conditional use is violated, then it goes to, you know, Paul or somebody or Brock, or somebody says, you know, this is crazy, we gotta stop this nonsense, you know, and then she comes in front of the council and says, here's the deal, it's $8 a gallon. People are chipping up asphalt, bolting it back together. And that's their decision at that point. But you can grant the extension. Yeah, it would likely then end up in an enforcement action versus a second extension. And then the city can redo the CUP application. And it comes back to you guys again. Okay, we're not gonna do a paved parking lot.
I'm going to trust that you understand everything that was just
Yes.
discussed. Fantastic. Okay.
so the condition would, or
Still looking for a road grader.
so last day of October 2022, we would not add the part that the applicant would need to refer to city council, just the extension.
Yep.
Right? Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Yep.
I make a motion to approve the applicant Crystal Rogers' extension request, conditional use permit, seeking an extension till the last day of October 2022 to satisfy the paving of the parking lot.
Okay, Mark is number one. We got two. Second by Billy. Travis.
Aye.
Billy.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, guys. Good evening.
Take care.
You're welcome to clear the room.
Good luck.
Commission, for the record, accessory dwelling unit ordinances, further discussion will be on March 21st agenda. Any questions about the monthly building permit, enforcement codes, or anything of such? Hearing none. No items.
Wait,
You had one more thing.
We did?
Yes, recognized persons not on the agenda for anything other than what has been here.
No?
Seeing none. Bro, that's really hoping you to say something. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to adjourn us at 8:45.
That thing was